meeting to order. Point of reference, Chair Riley was unavailable today. I just wanted to let you know that. I'd asked Beth if you could take a roll call for the meeting, please.
Yes. Trustee Flood,
Yes, here.
Trustee Mishu,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Loring,
Yes.
Trustee Landry.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. I guess I would like a motion, if I could, for the Human Resources and Labor Relations Committee of the Board of Trustees to go to an executive session under the provision of 1 MRSA Section 405(6)A to discuss the evaluation of personnel and the consideration and discussion of appointments, evaluations, employment, and duties, and 1 MRSA Section 405(6)D to discuss planning for negotiations and communications with AFM, UMSA, ESCOM, Police, PETFA, and Service and Maintenance Units.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Landry and Trustee Mishu. Thank you. Beth, could you take a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Mishu,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Loring,
Yes.
Trustee Landry.
Yes.
The motion carries. I'll move you into exec session. One
Thank you so
moment.
much.
Hi, Ria. I think we're supposed to be, there we go.
Send a note to the board clerk, something kicked me out, and it's clear that the residents are supposed to be there, so.
Are you set, Beth? You think everybody's back?
Yes.
Thank you. It's 2:00 and we're now entering the public meeting agenda for the Human Resources and Labor Relations Committee. We're slightly ahead of schedule, but basically on schedule. The first item I had put on the agenda was it's Human Resource Labor Relations Committee Chair announcements and updates. And I'm going to try to make that a regular habit, but not so you listen to me, but I want to have a section for each of these meetings where we can kind of talk about how to make our meetings better and things of that nature. I did want to say a few things today, if I can. I promise I won't take any more than two minutes. I just wanted to say I was very thankful for all the people on this call and everything you do for the continuation and improvement of our public university system. I think that the trustees who are joining us today and the senior leadership provide a foundation for excellence. And of course, the staff, our excellent professors and our administrative staff provide a very rich learning environment. Sometimes we don't say enough about that, I think. I want to thank the presidents, the committee members, the vice chancellors, and the staffs. And thanks to Vice Chancellor Dorsey for helping me through these meetings, Katie, Kayla, and Beth for helping put these together with their direction, their good counsel. Secondly, I wanted to say I was very thankful that the Board of Trustees recently chose to reelect our chair, Trish Riley, for another term as our chair of the board, and that the Board of Trustees recently voted to extend the contract of our Chancellor, Dan Malloy. Those are big activities that help set the stage for continuing success. These are two really great leaders, and I'm very thankful to work with them. And I'm honored to work for you, the Human Resources and Labor Relations Committee. I look forward to our public meeting today and some of the updates on labor contracts and strategic planning and our health plan. I also wanted to take an idea from Trustee Cates's playbook and ask that if any trustees or other members of the committee have ideas on how we strengthen our committee or have suggestions on topics that we should review more deeply, please let me know with either a text, a voicemail, or an email. This is your committee and I want it to be a good committee. And finally, I guess I want to just end by saying I know we have a pleasant announcement from Vice Chancellor Dorsey regarding our new Chief Human Resources Officer, and I will turn it over to her.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And I agree with your sentiments on being so pleased that our leadership structure is going to be staying with us for an ongoing period of time. So very pleased about that. I am also very pleased to introduce formally our new CHRO at the University of Maine System, Amy Parker. Many of you know Amy. She has been with the system for about 8 years, coming to us from Bates College. And before that, having been out in the public and private industry for several years. She has a wealth of HR knowledge. She has been a campus leader, a director of campus HR relations, the director of equal opportunity for us here at the system, as well as Title IX. And most recently, she served as a senior director of human resources and institutional equity for the University of Maine System. She has been a tremendous leader, very, very helpful to me over the past few years while I've been in this position. And I've appreciated very much what she's brought to the table and was so pleased that she was engaging in our search and was selected as the new CHRO. So happy to have her here. So welcome, Amy, and appreciate you in this new role.
Thank you.
Amy, you can say whatever you want right now. There's plenty of time. And if you had anything you wanted to say to folks, please feel free to do that.
So the thing that you should know about me is I'm rather pithy, so I don't often have a lot of words.
Okay. Message received. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll turn it over to Ria DeMay, our Senior Labor Relations Manager, Susan Cameron also. And Ria and Susan, please go ahead and give us the update on labor relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Flood. Susan Cameron's out of the office today.
Okay,
Ria Glendamay, Senior Director for Labor and Employee Relations for the system. And I only have a few updates. One, AFM, so the full-time faculty unit and UMS are continuing to engage in good faith bargaining related to distance education and resolving that issue. So those talks are continuing. We'll keep you updated. And we are also continuing to build the collective bargaining agreement with UAW and the UMaine grad students as well. We're working still on that collective bargaining agreement. One of the issues that we're dealing with is the sharing of information and how to make sure to balance their needs as a union with student privacy. So just to highlight an issue that we continue to work through together. The other update I have is related to bargaining. We are currently in bargaining with the full-time faculty unit, not only on distance education, but also the other parts of the collective bargaining agreement, which expires less than a week from now, as does the salaried staff collective bargaining agreement expire a week from now, and the hourly staff. So we are meeting with them frequently on a at least weekly basis, and spending, hours and hours trying to reach a resolution on some of these issues. Are there any questions?
thank you. I do not see any questions. Thanks for your hard work, Ria. Strategic plan update, Carolyn, and welcome, President Softly. Nice to see you. Go ahead, Carolyn. You were going to talk about strategic plan activities.
Yes, thank you very much. What I'd like to do, as you all know, a short time ago, as the chair of our strategic planning committee, Trustee Kane went through the strategic plan, the goals, the deliverables, some of the different items that we need to work on based on the strategic plan, and assigned them to some of the various committees that we have across the board to be able to determine how best to get some of the updates out to folks. And what we're trying to do, there's a handful of them that were assigned to this committee, HRLR. So what I would like to do is, as if appropriate, each time that we meet, have some of the groups come together and give us an update on something that relates to one of those goals or deliverables. So I thought a good one to start with would be some of the great work that's been happening around our system-wide DEI. And that currently, that team is led, co-led by Amy Parker, who you all just met, and Associate Vice Chancellor Rosa Radonnet, who everyone knows. Sorry, I'm going like this because as people are joining or leaving, that everyone's moving around, and I had my sights on Rosa and then she moved. So the two of them are going to give us just a quick update on some of the work that's happening in that committee and some of the great work that has certainly come just prior to the strategic plan, but really because of the fact that we've now made it more of a priority in our plan and the work that's happening towards some very specific goals. So I will turn it over to Rosa and Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. And I'm going to share my screen. We'll see how this goes.
So Trustee Flood, I should have qualified my statement earlier to say that the mark of a good HR person is one who talks less and listens more, unless they have something important to say. I think this work is something that Rosa and I are both really passionate about, and we're going to flip the script a little bit today and talk about first what some of our future projects and goals are that we're working on for this committee. So Rosa, could I have you move to the next? Thank you. So some of the things that we're working on in the continuing in the coming year is human resources as a function is engaged in redeploying our employee training in 2024. We're moving to a platform that we hope will be easier for folks to engage with. It is very similar to what we are using on the academic side of the house. And so I think it will be a product that will be familiar to folks. And within that expanded focus, there will be an expanded focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging professional development for employees. The DEI Steering Committee is considering adding an education, training, and programming subcommittee to hopefully build out and take advantage of this new platform and offer more training opportunities for the entire community. We are also working on planning for the 2025 climate survey. We're evaluating the survey tools and we're working on building a project plan for this work. This is, I think, some of the most important work that this committee will do. We've also been engaging, particularly with HR, and building more robust standard operating procedures. We've recently talked about the hiring procedures, how we work with folks as they're coming into the institution and also leaving, and really thinking about how to standardize those processes more. And that just helps ensure equity overall for every member of the community. We are going to explore the next steps concerning work that we previously did with Campus Admissions Office. This was prior to my time on the committee, and I understand this is work that was undertaken in the summer of 2021. And while some campuses did actively engage in this work, we envision revisiting this to develop a more comprehensive view of this work and what needs to be accomplished in this area. We are also exploring best practices in bias response. This is really in support of the campus leaders when there is an incident either on campus or nationally or globally. How do we effectively respond or not with communications about the incident that has transpired? And that's really just in support of our community members. But we also want to make sure that we are appropriate and thoughtful in that process. We are working on continued support of our LGBTQ+ community. We've been expanding flexibility in our systems, working on some projects to allow people to identify in a broader capacity than we currently have had in our systems. And that's some work that Rosa will speak to as well. We are also going to continue to expand the HR and academic calendars in really considering the sensitivity to a wider range of cultural and religious observances. UMA has done some tremendous work in this area and have launched what they are calling a heritage calendar. So we're hoping to really bring some focus to the work that they have done. And then finally, we'll work with appropriate groups to address and support the action items that are contained within the strategic plan that are specific to DEI. And at this point, I'm going to turn over to Rosa to talk about the work that we've done to date.
Thanks, Amy. It's good to be with you all talking about this work that we have found very exciting, and we have an energized and very active steering committee. So basically what I want to bring you up to speed on is the role of the steering committee and the work that we've done really specifically over the last year. We were formed back in late 2021, and each campus has its own campus-based diversity council, and representative from various campus-based diversity councils sit on our steering committee. The steering committee really does help to ensure that resources and best practices are shared and leveraged across the system, because that's where we can be our most effective. We support and work in conjunction with campus councils. You know, we're more of a complement or a supplement when necessary. Our goal is to build on and broaden the work we do as an inclusive community, building welcoming communities, providing equitable opportunities for all. And it fits in quite nicely with the language in the fourth part of the strategic plan that talks about a bunch of this DEI work. Our work over the last couple of years has been very focused on the campus climate survey. We hadn't done one of these. I can't remember us ever having done one of these, and I've been here a really long time. So we did our first. We used a survey instrument from HEADS, which proved to have some challenges, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We administered it in 2022, got our results in 23, and that plus a series of in-depth interview sessions held on campuses over 23 and 24 have provided quite a few good ideas as we move forward. We've been trying to ensure that DEI data is contained within the UMS dashboard. So if you look at various dashboards within the enrollment component of the dashboard, you'll find indeed that we are starting to include DEI data. And our goal is to ultimately land on what we would call a DEI dashboard. And there are a bunch of colleges across the country that are working on this that we're also learning from. We Amy referenced this in her comments earlier. We've been reviewing and updating our name usage policy to become a preferred and chosen name usage policy. We want to make sure that students feel welcomed. If you're not welcomed in your technology, then there's a good sign that you may not feel as welcome overall. A bunch of us sat in on a session at NETCHI a couple of years ago where an institution said that the single biggest thing they had done that students felt most included them was making sure that they could have choice in the way they identified themselves within their technical systems. So within their student information system, within their LMS, you name it. So we've been working pretty intensively trying to make that happen here at here in the system and within our Main Street system quite specifically. So we reviewed that and updated that policy. And within the last year, we implemented our first gender identity and pronoun usage policy, again, within Main Street, but also within several other platforms. What we've done with that particular one is take it the next step and also provide a variety of educational resources for folks and also some educational background so that if I'm in an office and I'm working with an LGBTQ plus student and I'm not sure how to effectively communicate, we give you some tips on how to do that and some commonly asked questions and some really good ways of understanding the community and helping to support them and advocate them more effectively. And then sharing best practices across the system. Amy mentioned the bias response. We've had some very detailed conversations about bias response and sharing across the campuses about how they individually and collectively deal with that. We've had quite a lot of conversation about accessibility, and you're going to see that this popped out as a major theme within the Campus Climate Survey. So I'll talk about that more in a minute. We've also been talking to a variety of groups that are working with different populations in Maine. There's a bunch of work going on currently around forcefully displaced populations in Maine and how our campuses could better support them. And then engaging youth who are asylum seekers in programs and how to support them. If you think about the work Cooperative Extension does, they see youth across a huge spectrum. And one of the pieces that they've been working with lately is quite a few asylum seekers who very much want to be able to participate in programs, but it's very difficult to find out ways to best support them. And that really comes down to finances most predominantly, but also spreading the word and making sure that we know that these opportunities are available. Quickly on the Campus Climate Survey, as I mentioned, the first time we'd ever done it was this past cycle. We will be looking at various instruments for the 2025 cycle. We may or may not use heads again. It was a very complicated, very complicated survey to use. And it took a very, very long time. But saying all that, quite a few themes popped out of the survey that I think have been useful for campuses. And then of course, each individual campus has additional pieces that are very specific to their campus. But what you see on your screen in the PowerPoint is really kind of an overview of themes that really permeated across all of the campuses. Observing more traditions and holding events on campus would be welcome. Some campuses, you tend to find that events are more towards the major cultural observances. Some variety was mentioned would be really good. And also it helps to educate people about the variety of different cultural observances that even exist. A strong feeling that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging should be incorporated in classes, especially any offered in the first year. There really needs to be a broader dialogue about this within our classes. And again, that critical first year for a student. Physical accessibility on our campuses requires attention. And this came out in virtually every session. It's something that requires a lot of attention, requires a lot of work. And some very simple things can make life easier for someone who has a disability. A shout out to University of Maine at Presque Isle, who's done some fabulous work in this area. They have a campus map that points out all of the accessible elevators, entryways, etc. They have, I think, what's the only truly accessible benches for sports gatherings. Outside benches, and I could go on, but they've got some really good examples, and we've been sharing those within the steering committee. Again, funding, I've mentioned, that does remain a challenge for the campuses as well. And Everybody felt that faculty and staff should receive DEI training and it should be mandatory. While we do have more mandatory training, it's focused on unconscious bias. And the feeling is that we need to be doing something kind of more broadly developed. And again, as Amy mentioned, with the new process that we're going to be putting in place, we should be able to develop some more complete training in that area. Students' abilities and talents should be utilized more effectively. Several students spoke really eloquently about this, that, too often they're invited to be on committees because they might be of a certain diverse group, and that group is wanted for representation on the committee. They felt that they could be used more effectively across the board, that it doesn't have to be just a group that needs a certain representation, that in fact their talents and abilities extend beyond who they are. And so, giving some real thought to that is going to be very important, including students and employees more completely. And then gathering regular feedback to I think all of our knowledge, focused on DEI. These interview sessions that we did are really the first that have happened in a little while. Different campuses have done things through their DEI councils, but it hasn't been done necessarily on a regular basis. And that going forward, being able to gather that feedback and then employ it into action is going to be critically important. In closing, what's interesting about all these pieces that we've done, if you look at the strategic plan and commitment 4, many of these items quite directly address what's in the plan. So, which I think Amy and I are both thrilled about. So let me take myself off share so y'all can see each other. Any questions? All right. Trustee Landry.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Rosa.
Hi,
Thank
there.
you, and Amy and everybody else who's been working on this. And great work. Appreciate all of this. I do have a couple of questions. One has to do with the KPIs in this area, and I don't know if those already exist. Most of the items under commitment 4 are process items, so you could achieve them, but I don't know to what end. Are we attempting to recruit more people who are underrepresented now? If so, are we trying to recruit more faculty? We're trying to recruit more students. We try to retain people and have the climate survey achieve a certain level, and by what time frame. So I don't see, none of that really jumps out at me. It just looks, there's a lot of process items under commitment 4. Where do we stand with the KPIs in this area? And I know they're not always easy to develop. I understand that.
It's tough in a qualitative area. Carolyn, do you want to jump in on that?
And I'm not sure, I can't speak to the survey, and if when the survey was done a few years, or 2 years now, I can't remember time, 2 years ago, if there was any KPIs relating to that specifically, but as far as our strategic plan, those have not yet been finalized.
Okay, do we know when they will be finalized, Carolyn?
There is a due date. I'd have to go in and look it up. I don't have it right, but I can check right now.
Oh, no, that's okay. And I mean, that would be good to have a follow-up discussion probably for this committee. Because we could, obviously we could achieve all our process items, but still not have achieved substantial change or whatever the changes that we're looking for. So, and that includes, I think, pipeline issues. The sort of active recruiting on faculty and students, and I've heard some of that today, but sort of what are our pipelines for people with disabilities? What are our pipelines for, various ethnic and racial groups that we are trying to attract? And those take time to develop, I know, and bear fruit. But I'm interested to know what those pipelines are and where we're active in those. I did notice on the list that it talked about mandatory DEI training. I think that's a good idea. I think we should do it at the board level. And I know that hasn't happened since I've been on in terms of the board. It may have already happened with senior staff. You may have already gone through mandatory training. But if not, then, that may be something we should talk about, in every forum that I've ever been at on this topic. It begins at the top, the commitment begins at the top. So I'd welcome the opportunity at some point to talk about a DEI training for at least the board level, if not the board and senior staff. So thank you for all you're doing on this.
Wonderful, thank you. Trustee McMahon?
I noticed in the documentation that you participate in the HEDS HEDS Campus Climate Survey. When I Googled that, there's apparently surveys given nationally. So do you have a database of a comparison to our peer group, to other campuses of colleges within our state? How do we compare with other people in terms of our outreach on DEIB, and how, what's our progress compared to our peers?
I can pull that out for you. One of the challenges we had with this survey, I mentioned earlier that we had several challenges, is we had relatively low response rates, which is going to make it difficult to do any kind of good comparisons with other institutions. But we do have comparators within the results we got. So we can pull some of that out and at least institutions that are similar to ours, and get that out to folks.
So is this one used by the majority of institutions, or is it just specific to state land grant institutions? I mean, why did we choose it if it doesn't have a lot of peer group information? I guess is my question.
It has of all of the surveys that are done, and I was only partially involved in this. Megan Clough was right in the middle of all this stuff. Megan has left us. Back when we were making this decision, there were two things that really moved us towards going ahead and using the HED survey. One was that UMaine had done quite a lot of research into a variety of different surveys, and there aren't that many surveys out there. At the time, there were maybe two, three, maybe four. And they were feeling that the HED survey would be a good approach and had a chance to pilot it at one of their colleges. I think it was the Liberal Arts College they had a chance to pilot at. And again, felt that it was usable. It gave a chance for custom questions. And so as we were doing our own research to do this system-wide, it made sense to go with a survey that had been tried and offered what we were looking for in terms of surveying. Again, the chance to do custom questions, since we have variability across campuses, but to also have some questions that were standard across the campuses. What we're finding is there aren't very many surveys out there. Many institutions are developing their own. So what we're in the process of doing right now is re-examining HEDS to see if we want to continue it for the next cycle. And there's obvious wisdom in doing that, because then you have the same survey in two different cycles, and you start to do some comparisons. And that gets at Trustee Landry's point, but also looking at some others that might give us better information about the kind of the general sense for DEI, and especially the belonging piece on our campuses. So more to come. We're actually meeting about that in just a couple of weeks. So that's kind of the background of why we made the choice we made. So, President Freeney-Mundy, I hope you didn't put that hand out while you're driving.
I think we skipped over Trustee Loring. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Donna, I missed you. Yep. Trustee Loring.
And you're muted, Trustee Loring.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you had a model, a comparative model from other like universities that are doing the same things with people of color and Native people. Any specific models from those groups?
Well, the campuses definitely have some of that information. USM probably USM most notably, I would say.
No, the reason I ask is because people you usually find, I usually find, and I'm going to be blunt about this, that people that are doing this work are not people of color. They're not diverse. And so my question is, how in the world can you create a program addressing these needs if you don't have somebody with a diverse background looking at this and making comments and kind of leading the way? That's what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nope, well said. Now, President Preeti Mundy.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, just somebody signal. Okay, good. This is a helpful report, Rosa. Thank you. Just a couple of points. The college we piloted this in was formerly NSFA, currently ELHS.
It was NSFA. Thank you.
Yeah, because we wanted to look specifically at an area of that college where we thought we might have some issues, and this was helpful as a survey. Very helpful to use something that's nationally benchmarked, because then you can not only look at trends but do comparisons. One of our biggest challenges, even at UMaine, which means that system-wide it's a challenge probably, is small cell sizes. Yep. Unfortunately, our numbers are so small in some areas that it's possible to potentially identify individuals. And therefore, a frustration here has been we can't break it down far enough to necessarily get good information. So the interviews are helpful in that front, as well as moving toward KPIs that don't get us into the small cell issue, while at the same time addressing very real issues. And to a small extent, I believe, to address Trustee Loring's excellent point of surveys, is that if the survey not only asks about how people feel about the current situation, but has some questions about what people would like to see, what the ideal state would be, and gives people a chance to weigh in, including people from any groups, that can be much more helpful for future planning. Because knowing where we are is good, but knowing where we'd like to go is even better. So I'm hopeful in the next versions that we're able to get some questions like that. Thanks.
Thank you. That was really important. Yes, the small sample size was a major issue across all of our campuses, even as you just heard from President Freeman, you know, our largest UMaine, USM, all of our campuses had similar issues. So just if you have a sample size that many times might be under 5, there's not a lot you can do with that data. Trustee Landry.
Yes, thank you. Just President Freeman-Mundy's comments just caused me to think that this is a system-wide initiative, and I guess my context is the campuses are so stressed, right? Everybody's doing so many things that if every campus is trying to reinvent the wheel on so many things, including DEI, I'm assuming that this is a system initiative. And one of the things that plagues DEI initiatives everywhere, it doesn't matter what size organization you are, is the absence of resources. You sort of hire one person, they're the DEI person. And so infusing it within the management ranks, DEI in finance, DEI in HR, DEI in education, et cetera, faculty, that's where the KPIs belong. It's not a separate animal, right? It's part and parcel of the overall management structure. So maybe a part of a future discussion to understand a little bit more about the structure so that this isn't landing on individual campuses, which have, that are resource shy, to be coming up with recruitment strategies unless they're specific to their particular genre. So anyway, I like to be able to chat about that in the future.
No, that's a really important point. Any other questions? Amy, anything you want to add?
The only thing that I would like to say is that I think it's very important that when we think about diversity, we think about it very broadly. And we tend to focus on very specific areas. And I think that is a perilous path to take. And so I'd really like to make sure that we stay with a very broad definition of diversity.
will certainly play a role in any metrics going down the road. Any last questions?
I didn't have a question, but I did hear two trustees with some specific kind of suggestions. Donna talking about when we do training or committees, to be sure that we are diverse in our presentation. And then I heard Valerie talking about maybe this should be a subject that the Board of Trustees, we get suitable training in this type of arena here. And I guess what I'll suggest I can do is I'll talk to Chair Riley about maybe making this a subject for an annual retreat or other Board of Trustees meeting, and with the suggestion that it also includes some diversity in the presenters for this. Is that something that would be suitable to you, Donna and Valerie?
Sure.
Yes, yeah, I think it's a good discussion. Thank you, Trustee.
Thank you. I want to continue it because it was good, and I'll talk with Trish about seeing if we can find an avenue for that. So thank you both for the suggestions.
I do have one question though of Amy, and that is a broader definition of diversity. What does that look like?
So we know that culturally in the United States, we tend to think of diversity as a concept of race and ethnicity, when really it's so much more, particularly in our community. So individuals with disabilities, people from an LGBTQ plus community, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So all of those types of things, considering what that might look like. Just making sure that we're inclusive of different folks.
Sure, and I do understand that, and the problem is, especially from the tribal perspective, is we are not what you might consider a racial group. We are tribal nations, and you have a political obligation to work with us. So that's all. Just want to make that point.
Thank you. That's point taken.
Any last questions? Okay, well, thank you all very much. We'll do some follow-up. Sounds like this will be an ongoing conversation, which is great. And if you have any questions after the fact, just let Amy or I know, and we will happily find the answer if we can. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Rosa. Our last discussion topic today was the employee health plan and task force update. And I know that Vice Chancellor Dorsey and Jason Talbert and Amy Parker were planning to make a presentation or a discussion with us. So I guess I'll start with you, Carolyn, if you want to lead this. Thank you very much.
Great. And my part of this presentation is simply to introduce the folks. So that's an easy part for me. We've already met Amy earlier. What I didn't mention when I was talking about Amy's role is for the last year, we've had a different organizational structure in HR that included the CHRO position, but then immediately below that, a team of 3 senior directors, and until Rhea just had to step off for bargaining, the 3 senior directors were on this call. So we have Amy Parker, who at the time was Senior Director of Human Resources and Institutional Equity, Rhea, who had to leave to go to bargaining, but our Senior Director of Labor and Employee Relations, but also Jason Talbert, who is the Senior Director of HR Operations, which really includes our HRIS, which is our information systems relating to our employees and our employee database, benefits administration. It was payroll, and now it's elements of payroll as it transitions over to the finance and administration area. So those 3 folks make up the senior leadership team. And what I've asked is that Jason and Amy come today and talk a little bit about how we have changed the way that we communicate with and engage with our employees, but also our retirees in areas that relate to benefit administration or healthcare or some of those decisions that we need to make. And one of the things that has been ongoing is there's been a committee that has spent quite a bit of time on this. I'm assuming it will likely be part of what Jason presents on, but I would like to say that in addition to the HR team, Vice Chancellor Lowe and some of the people that work with him in finance and administration, specifically Tracy Elliott and Miriam White, have been incredibly helpful to me in my role and the HR team in working with our employees and retirees on trying to develop the best benefit package that we can. So with that, I will turn it over, I believe, to Jason. Good. I saw 2 head nods, so that's great. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I'll begin to share my screen now. And the focus of my conversation today with you will be focused on, again, how that input from employees, retirees is received by folks, not just in my role, but as Carolyn mentioned, some of those real key decision makers and stakeholders, whether that's our senior leadership under finance, human resources, even labor relations. And so over the course of the last year, one of the real focuses of our efforts for those of us that work on my side of human resources has been, how do we engage better so that way people know that they have a voice in their benefit package, and then how do we evaluate that and work with them a little bit further. So I think it's important to know that there are several different avenues that we solicit input from, and really there's more than what you see here. My goodness, I'm grateful that I've been able to make some positive relationships throughout the system, but even folks will reach out to me directly, which is welcomed. But really the main 3 groups that are really responsible and tasked for being 100% employee facing, besides myself, is the Employee Health Plan Task Force, or EPTF, the Retiree Health Benefits Advisory Committee, and then the Employee Benefits Center. And we'll go through this a little bit more just so that way the roles of each are a little more clear. So we'll start with the Employee Health Plan Task Force. This was chartered back in the early 2010s to really try to, what we called at the time, bending the curve, or to try to increase the adoption of wellness within our benefit plans in a way to where costs for employees and the system were lowered. And we do that by meeting monthly. And you'll see the makeup of the committee here, or the task force, I should say, on the next slide. But really, it's to recommend actions that allow for the continuation of competitive benefit offerings. One thing that I enjoy doing with my job is really driving home the value of the benefits that we receive here as employees of the University of Maine system. It is truly a generous benefit package, and I think a great job is done given the resource constraints that we face. And so really what EPTF does is it allows us a place to where we can work through some of the pressures that impact, a health plan in a way to where we know we're driving that value back to our employees and our membership. So really, it's kind of that creating that culture of health where well-being is a strategic value while benefiting the UMS in and of itself. You'll notice that providing input into the collective bargaining process is part of that EPTF charge. And that's because we have representation from all of the unions where benefits is subject to negotiations, good faith negotiations within their collective bargaining agreement. As Carolyn mentioned, senior leadership from our UMS finance team in the form of Tracy Elliott and Miriam White, UMS Human Resources senior leadership, including myself, and then also our departmental benefits leadership, who are really tasked with the day-to-day administration of our benefits packages. Really, what I think one of the key components to the task force is the presence of not just Willis Towers Watson, who serves as our overall benefits broker, actuary advisor, but also from the other vendors that come to the employees represented through the task force, and either talk through, we always lead a session with opportunities for improvement. How can we take away pain points that our employees see and perceive? Maybe it's a network issue. Maybe we're seeing, eye insurance providers leaving a certain pocket of the state. How can we collectively overcome that and hold either our vendors accountable for building out a network, or drive tools or develop tools that the all employees can use to maximize their benefit strategy? And so really what we've got is we've got a collaborative environment to where we're getting as many viewpoints as possible, and as many avenues, I should say, of communication inward. And so when we think of the collective work of EPTIF and the fact that, yes, we do have senior leadership, we've got union leadership, one of the things that we're able to do is to truly partner together. Earlier this year, we launched a system-wide employee benefits survey to all employees to gauge that value. How did they see it? Not just from a health insurance perspective, but from a life insurance perspective. Even pet insurance. How are people utilizing their eye insurance? Where are the gaps? What do people see that maybe another employer had that, that they're hearing about, just to make sure that we're not doing our work with our blinders on, and we truly are listening to folks that have those concerns. By having our union leadership there, and often they're the ones negotiating with our labor relations team, that provides an avenue of advocacy for union members that wish to engage through that leadership. And really what we're doing is identifying trends and opportunities for improvement. So we want to take components of that total rewards package that work well and really make that work even better. And whether that's having labor management the labor management representation on even things like RFPs, to where we're selecting vendors for our plans, or engaging directly with the Employee Benefits Center to make sure that unique challenges within those union populations are effectively managed, addressed, validated, and an appropriate action taken to move us forward. Just kind of really creating that avenue for collaboration. One of the great things that came out of EPTIF over the last 12 months was a re-emphasized need for the system in and of itself to kind of meet employees where they are and to deliver this messaging in various formats. Last year, during our employee open enrollment period, was the first time since the pandemic that our benefits staff visited each of our campuses and universities. And it wasn't so much driven from a perspective of come to us to learn about what benefits you have what benefits you could benefit from. It was really more of we want to hear from you directly about the overall state of your benefits so we can take this back and make improvements. So I feel like to that extent, the past 12 months have been highly successful. The Retiree Health Benefits Advisory Committee is a much newer, or I should say much more recent formation. And really that was designed to bring some of the key stakeholders from our retiree community together to provide strategic input regarding retiree health benefits. We also meet monthly as this committee, and some of those same folks from our finance senior leadership, our human resources senior leadership, benefits leadership participate in those, as well as representatives from all unions. We even have a SHIP counselor. So SHIP counselors really assist folks navigating the Medicare landscape, which is confusing to people like me who are in this industry, let alone, I don't want to say the average retiree, but your typical retiree who is now, coming off all these years of being on most likely an employer-based platform into the unknown of, maybe it's supplemental Medicare insurance. So having that perspective to help us guide the benefit offerings is incredibly important as well. And again, really a mechanism for that feedback. Earlier, or I should say late last year, there were plan-specific benefit surveys conducted in winter 2023, and plan-specific for those on our Aetna platform, which is a traditional group plan, and then the Alight group, which was more the marketplace options, if you will. So right now, a UMS retiree has really two choices. One is the group plan, the other is to look at what the marketplace may have to offer, and all those marketplace options have one central administrator, if you will, and that's Alight. That feedback allowed us to improve and enhance open enrollment materials for 2023, allowed us to designate a liaison within the Employee Benefits Center who serves as a primary intake for those retiree-related benefits in question. So whether that's a current employee who is exploring the possibility of retirement, or somebody who's already retired that is calling the Employee Benefits Center for a resource, whether that's, it can be anything from guidance from navigating those Alight and those Aetna plans to, we've helped folks find a provider within a certain area. There's a lot of changes year to year in the legislative space when it comes to Medicare retirement plans. And so having that dedicated person allows us to really let retirees know, not only do you have a group of people that can serve as your primary contact, but we have an individual that's directly aligned to you. And we have seen extraordinarily positive results when it comes to that. Just last week, or the week before, I should say now, I was honored to attend the University of Maine Retiree Homecoming. This broader group has kind of given us some additional visibility when we attend those functions, again, our pulse, or I guess our fingers, I should say, on the pulse of where our retirees are. And one of the things that have come out of this, and the RHBAC is incredibly grateful for it to date, is our benefits team, along with some of our partners from TIAA, Alight, just to name a few, are scheduled a one full week in the first week of August at 5 different locations throughout the state of Maine, to where retirees can come almost as like a half-day seminar to like a menu to pick and choose which of those sessions that they feel that they would benefit from. And that same group is going to be one of the ones that help us market this, because what we found even through active employees is we have to have multiple channels of communication to effectively not just spread the word, but drive home the fact of, this isn't necessarily just something that we say we're doing. We truly mean that we're going to value this input and this feedback. And we may not be able to implement all of it, but we still need to hear it, and we need to consume that, and we need to partner together a little bit differently moving forward than maybe we have in the recent past. So without the RHBAC, I really don't know if we would have been able to diagnose the appetite for those in-person sessions, starting in Aroostook County and finishing up that week in Portland. So definitely grateful for those opportunities. And really, last but not least, we've got a team of 6 folks, 2 in leadership and 4 staff members of the Employee Benefits Center, who are responsible for all facets of our benefit package, whether that's helping somebody navigate, and our campus leadership navigate a leave of absence, short-term disability, long-term disability, all the question marks that come along with that, even from a mental health standpoint. Oftentimes when we need a leave of absence, we're not necessarily our best versions of ourselves, and they do a wonderful job of taking care of people and really making sure that they have the answers to what they need. All aspects of the UMS wellness plans and incentives, monthly, we still hold a benefits related new employee orientation. We know that it's a lot to ask of somebody on their first week or first month of working somewhere to understand the booklet that they get, right, and be able to make informed choices. So we want to be able to have a forum to ask questions and solicit that feedback. And the EBC is the front line for that. Helping employees navigate things that happen in life. Maybe, somebody's recently gotten married or divorced. They're adding children to their plan, helping navigate that space, and really just kind of providing that primary points of contact for all benefits eligible employees, retirees, dependents, and even, for things outside of that, just kind of being that triage for any questions or concerns that come up related to their benefits. So again, if I had to stress 3 different collaborative ways for employees to share questions, concerns, thoughts. They've got the union representation and then the management representation on the employee health plan task force that they've already retired. Then we've got the retiree health benefits advisory committee who can help with that. And then the employee benefits center is a wonderful catch-all and collaborator for all. So with that, I'm glad to address any questions, concerns, or thoughts that you may have.
Jason, thanks for identifying or explaining those 3 different partnership type of level organizations that work on this. I learned a lot and I appreciate it, what you gave us. Any other questions? David McMahon has a question.
Jason, excellent presentation. Simple question. Do you do a customer satisfaction survey, a client satisfaction survey? In other words, are you assessing the satisfaction of the retirees, the current employees, against the services you're providing?
Yes, to the certain degree that so not necessarily based on individual circumstances or points of contact, but from a global perspective. That was one of the main questions that we were asking, both from the retiree health benefits survey that was conducted, and then from the employee benefits survey that's conducted. One thing that we're exploring for next year, honestly, our bandwidth was consumed by another project, is really kind of being able to allow point in time feedback by anonymous survey, possibly from a link that we can embed from within our email addresses, just to make sure that we're hitting the mark, right? That somebody's not engaging with us because they felt like that they've hit a wall, that they're actually not engaging with us because they're satisfied with the outcome or they know that their concern has been heard. So we're going to continue to benchmark that against some internal data moving forward. But we have received general, very positive feedback from employees and retirees about their benefits offerings.
If you go to a doctor's office today, by the time you get home, you've got a text asking, how was it? How did they perform? I'm questioning, are you getting real-time feedback like that?
Well, to the certain extent that when we receive claim information, it's almost always de-identified because we don't have the ability to necessarily know, like if I were to go visit Dr. X, right? That's a protected action between myself and that provider. And so when we get data back, it's normally an aggregate for us to be able to review how claims are being spent. And so we really don't have necessarily data from a customer service perspective as far as like an interaction. We have the data from the benefits set, the suite of benefits overall, if that makes sense. But
right.
we are.
I understand the protected information, but I was thinking more about somebody says, I'm thinking of retiring, explain to me the Medicare benefits, etc. When you do that, you do an immediate customer satisfaction with the answer.
Not at this time, but we were already proactively looking at being able to launch that effective January 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that my hope is that employees understand that if they're not happy with an answer, there's always a path of escalation to take up. And that's one thing that the Employee Benefits Center really does a very good job with, is escalating a situation amongst their leadership and ultimately with me sometimes in the event that they feel like either, that we weren't able to serve or communicate an employee or a retiree the way that we would like to. And so there is an informal, it's not as simple as, well, I took a call, I hung up, and I'm glad that that's over. There is that informal mechanism behind the scenes that we employ to try to make sure when there is a known issue that we're at least doing our best to validate those issues.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our time, our allotted time, but if there's any other questions for Jason on this topic, or any questions for topics that we didn't finish to somebody's satisfaction? Appreciate that. Well, thank you very much for all the people who attended today's meeting and contributed. And I think we will adjourn our meeting unless I hear otherwise. I don't see any voices of concern. Thanks very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you.
care.